Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Vip Vipperman, and I'm excited to be here today for the Back in the Bold podcast. Today, my guest, Sam Logan from Evidencity, and I've been looking forward to having a conversation with Sam. Sam, welcome, buddy.
Yeah. Thank you, Vip. Good to see you. Good
Yeah,
morning.
yeah, good to see you as well. Actually, I guess good evening to you. I heard you're not on this side of the planet. Sam, where are you calling in from today, buddy?
I'm not on that side of the planet or that side of the pond. Currently in Spain. I am in Barcelona, Spain, almost smack dab in the middle of the city.
All right. So, what's a northeasterner from the U.S. doing in Barcelona, Spain?
Yeah, so my wife is Brazilian Portuguese. We started our family in Rio in Brazil years ago and moved back to the US for a time. And we always had a desire to move to Europe to be closer to her family in Portugal. But we wanted to live in a town that's sort of between the mountains and the beach, like Rio is. And Barcelona is the Spanish town that is most like that. And so here we are, close to her family in a town that looks like Rio and in Spain.
Bro, I just got super jealous when you said close to the beach and close to the mountains. I like both of those places. Texas has neither. Well, we at least not anywhere
A
close
little
to
bit, right?
us.
It's got
Yeah,
foothills a little bit,
a
I
little
think,
bit.
towards Austin, right? Yeah.
Right. So that's awesome. Glad you guys get to make your lives there. That means you probably live life in a couple different languages. Is that right?
I do a lot of work in Spanish, and we speak a lot of Portuguese at home. I do life in Spanish. I'm now a resident of Spain, so I do a lot of my banking in Spanish and other sort of like laundry, car things, mechanic, all of that stuff happens in Spanish. So, but Portuguese is what we speak at home. Portuguese
Oh,
and
wow.
English. So,
So I was
so
going to say, who do you speak
roll
English
between.
to anymore? Just us
Uh,
Americans
just
when you're
just
on a
you, Vip.
call.
Just you. No one else.
Nice.
Yeah, because I can't speak Mandarin, so we have to speak in English.
Right. Well, there you go.
Yeah.
Well, dude, tell me a little bit about your entrepreneurial journey. I remember meeting you at a Shark Tank style event
Oh,
in
yeah. Wow.
DFW like 6 or 7 years ago now. But
Yeah.
by then, you were already on the entrepreneur journey and building Evidencity
Yeah.
up. I think that was even your second company. So just tell me a little bit about like childhood getting to like become an entrepreneur and building tech companies.
Yeah, well, my dad's a former Marine, naval aviator. When he left the service, a couple years after I was born in the late 70s, he basically made his own way. I think back then, there really wasn't a lot of culture or conversation around being an entrepreneur. You just kind of, raw hustle and scrappy. And but then
Nice.
growing up, like in my memory, I just remember my dad, you know, seeing a problem, finding a solution, fitting it to the market, and then growing it. And I saw my dad do that a few times. So in my own journey, when I left undergrad and moved to Latin America to work as a journalist, and living in Chile, I noticed a problem there. I said, I think we can solve this. And so that was my first company. The first company I ever started. First time I ever tried to do it was in Spanish in Chile in the
Oh,
late
wow.
'90s.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then built another company, a subscription service that failed, but I learned a lot. And then a business that was built on the back of my journalism experience called Southern Pulse was my third company. And then Evidencity spun out of Southern Pulse many years later. And so by the time you and I met, I was focused on Evidencity, still am, and so yeah, it's my fourth company as an entrepreneur.
That's exciting. Um, well, excited to hear a little bit more about Evidencity. What was the problem that you guys saw when you built Evidencity? Because you said you spun it out of Southern Pulse. So I guess
We
better
did.
question is what was the problem you saw at Southern Pulse that caused you to spin it out?
Yeah, the problem that we saw, Vip, was that the market needed information on companies and individuals to make better investment decisions
Okay.
and to avoid risk, reputational risk primarily. But these clients of ours at Southern Pulse, wealth management, family offices, that sort of non-banking financial institution vertical, those folks needed this information that's publicly available. But at the time in 2015, 2016, that space, it wasn't readily available within a commercially productized version. So Evidencity spun out of Southern Pulse to not only build out a platform to enable access to that type of information, but also to create a brand that wasn't limited in the way that Southern Pulse is limited, because Southern Pulse as a brand just focuses on Latin America. So we wanted to bring out another brand, Evidencity, which is evidence in city. So like data and evidence at a local level, but
Hmm.
then spin it globally and make it available with a sort of focus on emerging and edge markets, but at the global level. And so that was the initial problem that we were focused on solving. And to this day, here we are almost 10 years later, we're still going after the same problem solution set, just in a different way, because over time technology changes, the market it adapts and evolves, regulatory space, also is evolving and adapting. So yeah, that's kind of how we got started though.
That's cool. So, what type of data and information are we talking about here?
Yeah, good one. So there's really basically three categories that we're looking at. One category is to confirm identity, right? So, we have birth certificates. Corporations also have a type of birth certificate. It's called an incorporation document, or whatever the jurisdiction may want to refer to it as. So that's sort of that ID space. The next one is exposure to risk or the regulatory environment in some way. So that's public contracting, that's litigation,
Mm.
that's other sort of similar space. And then the third one, which is probably the largest one in terms of just volumes of data, is the sort of adverse reputation or negative reputation space. There's adverse media in that. There's all kinds of other open source information in that space. So you want to confirm identity. You want to look at everything else that has to do with that person as it's exposed to public contracts and opportunities for corruption. And then you want to look at the sort of the mega data set of everything else that's out there that may speak to a negative reputation or direct or indirect relationships with a bad actor.
Interesting. Okay, so the solution you guys created, how's it work? Like, what does it look like in the work that you guys do?
Yeah, so we're about this fall. We are literally weeks away from launching the fifth version of the solution. Okay,
Oh wow.
so
Okay.
the first version was really like a call and answer service where, Vip, you're in Texas, I'm in Spain, and you want to get data on a company that's registered in, let's say, in Madrid, in Spain, the capital city. You can't go online to find it, so you would make a call. In this case, with Evidencity, you would log onto our platform. You would select the jurisdiction, which is Spain, and you would type in the name of the company you want the incorporation documents for, and then Evidencity would receive your call or your request. We would then assign it to someone on the ground in Madrid, if necessary, or maybe someone who speaks Spanish who has access to that, that portal, that web portal that you don't have access to.
Hmm.
We would bring forward all of the information, write up a short report, give you the original documents, and then answer your call with that reply, right?
Hmm.
And so all of that happened on our platform. And over the years, we've just iterated in a better, faster, cheaper way of doing that, where today we're incorporating AI into that answer process. We're automating more of it so you have more control
Hmm.
over how you want to make that call and what you want to be calling about. And over the years, we've simply just gotten better at understanding how data is organized, where it's located, how it's controlled, and how people want to access it and use it.
Insane. So, give me some examples of one of the projects that's been most interesting to you, or that you felt like it's like had the most significant impact.
Yeah, so the top one by far, and the one that I am still talking about calling and answering, I'm still getting calls about it today, maybe two or three a month at this point. We were asked to look into the global supply of tantalum. So tantalum is what a lot of people would agree is a critical mineral. It comes from mining a rock called coltan. So it's this fused metal, and you dig it up out of the earth, and it's used in a sort of commercial sense or industrial sense, to be able to pass a great deal of electricity or a great deal of current without rising the heat so much. So tantalum is what's responsible for enabling you and me and hundreds of millions of other people to recharge our cell phones without the cell phones overheating and blowing up, right?
Nice.
Tantalum is what
Important
allows that to
metal.
happen. Important metal. It allows us to do it for our laptops, all sorts of other things. Tantalum is really everywhere, and very few people have actually heard about it. And here's the hardest truth about tantalum is that 70% or more of the global supply of tantalum comes from just one country, the Democratic Republic of Congo,
Mm.
which from a transparency perspective is very challenging. So we were asked to look at mapping the global supply of tantalum. And the way that we do it is a little bit different from many other people because of my experience as a journalist. When a journalist is asked to look at something and help a reader understand something, a journalist generally goes to ground first and starts talking to people in the local location, on the ground, developing sources, and then builds a story up from the ground. There's open source documentation and research that happens. There's a bunch of other work that goes into it, fact checking, and then writing it so it's easy to understand and the rest of it. But because of my journalist background, we go to ground first at Evidencity. So we talk about going from the dirt, which is to say on the ground, to the consumer. So we mapped tantalum from the dirt to the consumer, looking at where it's mined in the Eastern Congo, so close to the border with Rwanda for the most part, how it goes out from there to smelters and other people in that sort of first third of the supply chain. A lot of it boomerangs through China and places farther east before companies, largely in the West, purchase that sort of refined or finalized product. And so then what we did was we mapped it from the dirt to the consumer by saying, okay, let's look at tantalum, let's look at that supply chain, and then let's look at the S&P 500 companies, right? So those publicly traded companies in the United States, at how and where exactly they're exposed to tantalum. And then we connected that exposure to an estimate or an approximation of the number of slaves in terms of forced labor in modern slavery context, the number of slaves in the Eastern Congo that their purchase of tantalum is potentially supporting or facilitating.
Wow.
Really cool project, has had a lot of impact. It's generated a lot of conversations, some really good conversations, some fairly defensive conversations. All, as you can imagine, all along the way, we've learned a ton. And to this day, we're continuing a lot of conversations with some of these companies. And we're really excited that some of them are responding in a positive way
Yeah.
and saying, okay, like, let's lean in, let's learn more. So
It's amazing. So, I mean, your background and training is all about digging up like details and bringing them to light, like taking those dark necessarily things. Were you even in the black markets at some point?
me personally, no, but I've investigated it a lot. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Okay.
In my journalism background and in my graduate school background, I studied international policy studies. I have a master's in that. But that within that specialization, or sorry, within that degree, I specialize in the economics of black markets.
Mm.
I've written 2 books on criminal organizations at this point. I've published hundreds of articles on criminal organizations. So understanding how those illicit economies operate and function is something that I've brought to the table as a founder for Evidencity, and it really continues to point us in the right direction in terms of where to find stuff, how to find stuff, and how to explain it simply, because we're dealing with very complex issues, but they need to be explained in a way that people at home can understand.
That's fascinating. Man, so many questions. Well, talk to me about why this space, like when it comes down to like revealing information and what gets you excited about it and why do you keep, diving into these difficult places?
I suppose there's 2 things. One is we want to be a part of a group of companies, because we're certainly not the only one doing this, but we want to be a part of a group of companies that's challenging the rest of the market to do better, to do more.
Ah,
One of the things that we see in the world of compliance, of know your customer, of know your business, of all of these other things, because in most companies the leadership considers compliance or sort of adherence to the regulatory regime to be a cost center, not an opportunity for investment, not an opportunity to increase brand reputation, not an opportunity to earn more, but a cost center. And for that reason, Vip, a lot of companies that we talk to just want to check a box and move on. Um,
yeah.
Evidencity is here to say that's not good enough. You
Mm.
can and you can do better. And it's amazing how much, if you think about it from a unit economic standpoint, how much more a company has to spend to do better is really pennies on the dollar when you break it down to unit economics in terms of looking at their product, how much of that product is connected potentially to slave labor or to sex trafficking. within that context, we can make a fairly strong argument for, hey, if you spend just a little bit more at this unit level, then you're going to be in a much better position. And there's a great story that you can tell. The other part of it, and the other sort of big reason why we want to do this is because within the broader context and conversation of modern slavery, let's be honest, the bad guys are winning.
Mm.
And up until this point, up until maybe, I don't know, my experience maybe 6 or 7 years ago, the folks leading the fight were with government agencies, they were with NGOs, they were with other entities, perhaps journalists, but we really haven't seen the full girth and muscle of the private sector get behind this fight. And so Evidencity wants to be a part of that group, of that growing sort of crescendo of voices and unification of purpose to bring that fight to these dark places. And so as a company, we want to be that high powered beam shining light into those dark places to help people truly see, if it's wool spinners in India, if it's a fishery out of Malaysia, if it's miners in Eastern Congo, we want to be the company that can say yes when someone says, well, I've got a really tough jurisdiction to operate in here. We don't really have an option. Who can help us? Evidencity wants to be on the short list of companies that say yes and actually mean it, because we're going to say yes because we can do it, or we're going to say no, we can't help you, right? So those are some thoughts that come to mind.
Dude, that's amazing. So, talk to me a little bit about finances in a space like this. I mean, you've built a business around this concept, right? It's not just like y'all are, going on your own dime to go find these, this research and do these things. Like you said, it's not a nonprofit. You're not kind of raising money and then going, to build reports and to find out information about slavery. Talk to us about the financial aspects, like the economics of the business that you've started, and how that enables you to, grow it and scale.
Yeah. So from the financial standpoint, when we think about the size of companies that may go for an IPO, or the size of companies that we may read about in headlines with hundreds of employees and hundreds of millions or billions in revenue, um, that is not the direction we're headed. Evidencity, at least within my current understanding, is not a company that we're trying to grow to a unicorn. If we're going to have a unicorn in any way, we want to have a sort of a unicorn from the standpoint of impact, not from the standpoint of the size of the company. So since the beginning, we've always run a lean, sort of a lean overhead, a lean company, and from that perspective, we're also able to maximize our impact in the world, because if you think about it, Evidencity is operating successfully in over 80 jurisdictions worldwide. But that doesn't mean that we have 80 full-time employees. That means that we've built out a process and a system of understanding who the good people are, how to tell them to do good research, and then how to pay them in a way that is massively impactful for them and for the local communities at $15 US an hour, right? But then also doesn't cost us a ton of money. So that's sort of one base layer. Secondly, in terms of our product, everything that we do today sort of orbits around our data. Okay, so
Mm.
we're leveraging data that we've collected and that we've structured over the years, but we are bringing to the market not just the data, which for us is our primary way of impacting and of assisting with this broader fight, but we create other opportunities for people to access our data, where the data itself can be sold, and we can spend $30,000 to build one data set, right? And then we can sell a subscription to that data set for maybe 150 or 200,000, depending on the use case and the application. It may be a little
Mm.
bit lower. But then as you resell that same data set to this group or that group or the other, you can quickly see that the profit is there. It begins to build up nicely.
Yeah.
Um, the other way is with the platform, and for us, the platform that we're now moving into a new version. It's basically a subscription based business model, right? Which is proven time and time again to be successful. And then the other one, the third way that people access our data, if it's not directly buying the sort of the raw structured data or via the platform, is through a sort of a more traditional consultative approach. And this is where we have people who come to us and say, hey, we've got one conversation I'm in now, 60,000 suppliers in 120 different countries.
Oh, wow.
They're not coming to Evidencity because they want us to monitor all of it and do all of the things. There's other companies that do that better than we ever could. What they come to us for is they say, here's 3 jurisdictions that we're really concerned about.
Ah,
Here's 2,000 or 3,000 suppliers across these jurisdictions that we really need to drill deep on and understand. And that's where we're leveraging our data, but our research methodology to actually
nice.
help them solve a problem, right?
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
so
It's like,
across those 3 ways, we're able to build revenue and also build relationships at the same time.
it's awesome. Dude, I love hearing that. Talk to me a little bit about the need companies have for the type of service. I mean, from what I'm hearing, a few years ago, the Epstein trial, cost JP Morgan close to $300 million because they didn't do the background and they were letting money go through their systems. Just a year or two ago, we saw TD Bank get fined close to $2 billion because they weren't doing some of their like checks correctly as well. And there were some gaps there and some money that was moving through their systems. I mean, it seems like if people aren't doing the research well enough and keeping a good enough idea, like you said, not on the whole 60,000 per se, but on that really risky 2,000, the likelihood of them getting on the front page of the Wall Street Journal and getting significantly fined is this
Yeah,
going up more and more. So you're starting to see more of an appetite for the work that you guys do,
I
and
am. Yeah. Go. I'll let you finish. Sorry.
yeah, I mean, it just feels like there's a growth in this space and more of a need for the type of data that you have, as everything's on the internet now. And as soon as something happens, people are finding it out.
Right, right. Well, they're finding it out in a variety of different ways. Yes, there is the fear of missing out, and it's we hear about that a lot. FOMO. There's another there's also a FOMU, FOMU, which is the fear of messing up. Um,
Yeah.
and and so I get a lot of that FOMU portion of the conversation where folks from large recognizable brands who I know just from years of being in this business of helping mitigate risk and manage reputation for publicly traded companies, they'll call me up and they say, Sam, we don't need a whole big scan. Our problem is that the scan that we have, which is the best in the market, we're spending millions of dollars a year on it. It's not catching the gaps. There's gaps in the data. And in one line, VIP, it's big data is not enough for transparency. And
Hmm.
so the executive or the general counsel or the VP of compliance or whatever it may be, we personally, I love to work with directors of transparency. There's actually a title for that.
Hmm.
That's really our target avatar for what we're selling to from a consultative sort of solve posture. But what we're finding is that these folks who are getting dinged, they're not getting dinged because they don't have a compliance program. They're not getting dinged because a compliance program is not top shelf or professional. They're getting dinged because their compliance program is missing that 2,000 of the 60 because the compliance program relies on big data, right?
Hmm.
So one of our go-to-market strategies is to not go to the S&P 500 companies, although we are talking to them to a certain degree. One part of our go-to-market strategy with our data is to go to the companies that sell these scans. There's thousands of them. There's thousands of them, and we go and we say, look, we have cost-effective data intelligence that you need. And one of the taglines that we use is structured intelligence on illicit networks that conventional scans miss
Hmm.
because they do. And so we've discovered a positioning in the market and a price point, and then it's backed by the fact that we actually have the data. We can show it to them, and they come in and they say, yes, we want to license this. So we're talking to these, and this is where I'm going to be focused between now and the end of the year and maybe next year, because there's just so many. There's
Yeah.
just so many, right? We want to go to them and say, we want to help you provide a better scan for your clients, right?
Yeah.
And so that's one of the opening opportunities that we see in the market that we're just, I mean, me personally, it's where I'm focused as a CEO,
That's where you're
100% right
going.
there.
I love
Yeah.
it. Well, tell me really quickly before we finish, how do you get that data that they don't have access to, right? I mean, bigger company, more money, more people, but is how is it that Evidencity can get that layer that they don't see? Is that because you're starting from the ground and working up?
It's because we're starting from well, there's a couple things. Yes, we're starting from the ground and working up. Two, we've been working on a methodology of research that I would say started. I'm not going to use the word pioneered, but because it's not unique in any way, but it's just practicing, innovating, and evolving the methodology over 15 years. That methodology is now managed by an Oxford PhD, who's our research operations director. He's
Cool.
made it even better, Vip. I mean, talk about, what's the best way for team growth is to hire someone who's smarter than you, but who's also humble and teachable enough to listen to what you say,
Oh
right?
wow.
So,
Yeah,
so,
that's a
so this
combo.
guy, this guy is way smarter than I'll ever be, but he's humble enough to say, okay, Sam, tell me exactly how we want to do this. So we are starting with known data points. So people who've been arrested, FBI most wanted list, DEA's most wanted list, sanctions lists. We're starting with the data that everyone agrees is good, and then we go from there. So if you think about like, I'd love to know who's going to be sanctioned tomorrow. Our data can tell you that because we look at who's been sanctioned, and then we do the research on determining who those people are related to. AI doesn't get you there, right?
Mm.
You have to have humans. We will use AI to scale, but we'll always have humans in the mix to make sure that our data is valuable in the sense that it's going to be offering you a capability of covering the gaps that those conventional scans just aren't going to be able to hit, right? So that it's that methodology. It's the human plus approach, right? That we have to keep in play, right?
Dude,
Which is why our data sets number in the hundreds, right? They don't number in the tens of thousands of subjects, but every subject is gold because if you hit that subject because you're related to someone who's related to that subject, you're
mm,
probably going to avoid a massive fine or massive reputation hit.
nice. Dude, it's awesome. Well, somebody's got to dig into those dark things and bring the light in there. I love how you
Come on,
said, like, shine the laser. So
let's do
we're
it.
excited that you guys are doing it and doing it with that level of skill and that level of passion. And it's exciting that you're unearthing, these difficult things and trying to bring hope into a difficult part of the world.
Yes,
Lord
we are.
willing, we can clean up some of these supply chains, bring more and more transparency, and see the lives of many people transformed. So thanks for the work
100%.
that you do, Sam. Hey, if
100%.
someone's been listening to this podcast and they want to learn a little bit more about Evidencity or they want to tap into y'all's work because it's the places that they're operating in the world, how do they get more information? What's the best thing for them to do?
Yeah, real easy. Just evidencity.com and then look at our solutions, pick a page that to you sounds interesting, and then book a discovery call. You're going to end up with me or you're going to end up with Kate, our director of client relations. Either way, you're in good hands. So
Wait a
happy
minute.
to happy to
They
talk to
could
anyone.
still get direct to you after all these
Yes,
years?
yes, they can. Yes, they can. If they want to talk to me about data, 100%. If they want to talk to me about our AI products, 100%. That's still with me.
That's awesome. Um, I can't help but say, if they want to dive into that tantalum research, is there a link on y'all's webpage for that as well?
There is. Yeah. If you scroll down to the footer on our webpage, there's a private link, which is private, but maybe somebody would have a reason to have access to it. There's a lot of really sensitive information there. The public link is at the footer of our website. On every page on our website, you can hit it there. It's called Project Tantalus.
Tantaloops. All right. Hey, Sam, thanks so much for the work that you do, man.
Yeah, my
Excited to
pleasure.
follow your journey and excited to see this new version 5 roll out this fall.
Me
So,
too, man. Me too. Thank you, Vip.
all right. Have a great day, buddy.
You too. Bye.